How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
My fellow Americans, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number 877-973-7425. We got to talk about the breaking news. It appears we have a bomb suspect in the January 6th pipe bombing of the DNC and the RNC. Now, for those who don't remember this, on January 6th, there was this weird situation of a pipe bomb that was found in D.C. at the RNC and at the DNC. There were a lot of questions about it, and there were a lot of conspiracists on the right. Remember, if I'm going to be real honest with you, there is this ongoing conspiracy theory on the right that January 6th was all a bunch of FBI agents encouraging people to get in. And in fact, there was a report out about the number of FBI agents that were put on the street in plain clothes on January 6th. That's been used as a conspiracy theory to amplify this. The president's team themselves amplified that. And what they totally missed was that that report was about after the riots began. Those FBI agents went onto the street. They weren't there first. They totally lied about it to try to perpetuate a false narrative to benefit the right, to benefit the president. The left and the right like to lie to each other in public about what's going on. They like their preferred narratives, and that's one on the right. And so in addition to this belief that, remember, at first it was all Antifa, then it was FBI agents, people on the right for a long time began to believe that it was actually the FBI agents who were planting the pipe bombs to make Trump supporters look bad. The Blaze came out very recently. I don't know what's happened to the Blaze. It is embracing the Nick Fuentes crowd. It seems like they've just completely descended, it seems, in my mind, to madness, and increasingly becoming unhinged. An innocent woman was blamed by the Blaze. A federal security officer was linked to the pipe bombing attack, cleared her name. She has an alibi, a video of her playing with her puppies at the time the devices were placed. The FBI has ruled her out as a suspect in the plot, but the Blaze was so desperate to tie this whole grandmaster conspiracy together to blame the federal government for January 6th and completely lie about what happened on January 6th that they named an innocent woman as the suspect based on a walking profile. That if you matched the cadence of the walk of the masked pipe bomber and you matched the cadence of the walk of this woman, who I'm not going to name because she's innocent, you had the same person. I await her lawsuit against the Blaze. Boy, did they get out over their skis, and they deserve what's coming based on the information we have. The name of this suspect appears to be, making sure I have it right, Brian Cole of Virginia. This is from the New York Post. The suspect arrested for planning pipe bombs outside the Republican and Democratic National Committees ahead of the January 6 riots has been identified as Brian Cole Jr. of Virginia. Cole, age 30, was busted by the FBI Thursday morning in connection to the attempted bombing just shy of the 5th anniversary of the riots. Sources told the Post investigators were looking into his possible connection with some form of anarchist writings or leanings, though specifics were not immediately known. Authorities said Cole was the man caught on camera skulking around the capital city the night before former Vice President Joe Biden's election victory was to be certified by Congress, leaving viable explosive devices outside the major party headquarters in D.C. The video showed him carrying a backpack, wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt, mask, gloves, glasses, and a pair of Nike Air Max Speed Turf sneakers. The devices were found the following afternoon just as Congress was convening, and they've had a search for this man ever since. You know, so the conspiracy on the right has been that it was a federal agent, that it was the feds. They were trying to make Trump supporters look bad. But the left as well concocted a theory. The left's theory was that this was a Trump supporter, and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino were never going to look into it. This is where the left was. The right had its conspiracy theory to its side. The left's conspiracy theory was that it was obviously a Trump supporter trying to blow these institutions up because they were anti-establishment, trying to defend Donald Trump. They knew that even at the RNC, they didn't really like Donald Trump. And so Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, they're going to cover it up. They're never, ever, ever going to attempt to find the actual bomber. They're going to bury the evidence. No, actually, federal authorities have been working pretty diligently this whole time, and they have found who they believe is the person. We don't know all the evidence. We haven't had the press briefings yet, but it's a reminder that both sides like to weave stories and narratives that leave out the truth to advance and placate the interests of their own sides. And oftentimes, those of us who are still normal and haven't been broken in this wild age of Trump where, boy, people are just so broken, whether they hate him or love him, you gotta stay on the narrow, straight path of sanity and recognize that both sides at this point have gotten so tribal that they're willing to weave intricate tales that in some cases, like with the Blaze, out name and blame an innocent person. And they like to tell tall tales because it makes them sleep well at night. You know, that's a lot of conspiracy theorizing these days. Conspiracy theories, there are a number of reasons in my mind. One is you want to simplify complex things. Another is you want to complicate simple things. A third is you have failed at life and can't bring yourself to blame yourself, so you must concoct a conspiracy of blame for other people. And oftentimes we see that on all sides. They have failed in some way, but they got to concoct a theory to blame other people. They can't accept blame for themselves. They can't accept blame for their own actions. They don't want consequences. The riots on January 6th weren't a good thing. The left, though, trying to tar and feather every Trump supporter as being complicit was a bad thing. This is where, you know, the other day I talked about the Reconstruction stuff. The left is now talking more and more. We need Reconstruction once we take back power. That's about all Trump supporters. They see every Trump supporter as the bad guy. And make no mistake about it, I'm not deluded. As someone who is willing to criticize the president, even this, I'm already getting hate mail. While I'm sitting here talking, I can see the hate mail coming in from Trump supporters angry with my take on January 6th. And what I am very mindful of is, despite me saying what I said, and I stand by it, when the Reconstruction comes, the left is coming for me too. So there are people on the right who say, well, you should double down. You should be with us. You shouldn't say these things. They're going to come for you too. No, I think I've got an obligation to the truth. Whatever the left does, I think the truth sets you free. And the left is deeply captured by lies. Deeply captured by lies. People on the left, how many of you really believe someone can transition, that gender identity is real? That's a lie. It's a lie that has captured you and corrupted your party. How many of you believe that illegal immigrants don't get welfare benefits? You know, that's one of the weird stories we're having now that we're going to get into is just last year, remember, when Donald Trump was talking about all the illegal immigrants getting welfare benefits? What was the talking point on the nightly news? What were the fact checkers at PolitiFact saying? Illegal aliens don't get welfare benefits. And now, what is the talking point? Why, you racist, are you upset about illegal aliens getting welfare benefits? I mean, they went from they don't get them to, of course they get them, you racist. Why do you have a problem with it? Because it's being exposed in the Somali fraud in Minnesota. And you know, the new thing is, why are you calling it a Somali fraud ring? You don't call organized crime by white people a white mob. Well, that's actually what you call January 6th, you people on the left, a white mob. But actually, we call it the Italian mafia, the Chechen mob, the Romanian hackers. The Somalis are from Somalia. It's a fraud ring of Somalians. Therefore, it is a Somali fraud ring. There's nothing racist about it, but you people want to scream racism to avoid the implications of it. The narratives they weave for themselves. The narratives that help them sleep well. We're going to find out about this Brian Cole guy. I know nothing about him. The information is slowly trickling out. I'm sure there will be an FBI press conference later where Kash Patel will yet again say something stupid. But at least we'll get some facts about this situation. We're also, by the way, getting facts about the situation in the Caribbean. You know, what have I told you guys for a very long time? When these sorts of stories about the Trump administration come out, wait a couple days and see how it changes. The story about, well, the guys were floating in the ocean and they bombed them a second time to kill them came out over Thanksgiving weekend. And then suddenly the New York Times comes out and says, actually, it's different than that. They were trying to sink the ship. Those people died in collateral. Well, today there are new revelations that completely undo the Washington Post story. That they weren't floating in the water clinging to debris as claimed. They climbed back into the boat and were attempting to save the drugs and in contact with another narco-terrorist vessel to come save them. Wow, how the story has changed. But you see, the left wanted you to believe that Pete Hegseth was a war criminal. I kept telling you, let's see what comes out. We don't really know. Congress needs to investigate. They set the narrative. They didn't care about the truth. They set the narrative. That's what so much of all of the antagonisms in today's headlines are both sides setting narratives to try to own the other side. They don't really care about the truth. And don't deny it. People on the right do it too. The president's team does it. My job is to sort through it, to tell you what's actually going on. The left is trying to paint Pete Hegseth as a war criminal to delegitimize the entire administration. The Washington Post ran with the story that now multiple media outlets from the New York Times to ABC News are now directly contradicting it. When we come back, I'll play you the audio. Martha Raddatz, not exactly friendly to the administration, has the story. Await until you hear the facts. Guys, if you struggle to come up with gifts for family members, I got a suggestion for you, the Cove Pure. I love mine. I wasn't sure I would like it as much as I do, and I really, really, really do. What is a Cove Pure? Well, it's an water filtration system. It's on the countertop. You can get cold water. You can get hot water. It even has a bottle button, so you can get the warm bottle perfect for formula for your baby at night. It's really easy. It's so convenient. I use it all the time in my office. You will love it. It sits on the countertop. It uses reverse osmosis. It gets rid of like pharmaceuticals, fluoride, lead, arsenic. It's the purest water you can get. It tastes fantastic. If you're looking for a great gift for your loved ones or for yourself that they're actually going to use the Cove Pure. I partnered with them. They're giving you a $250 holiday discount with my link, covepure.com/Eric. That's COVEPURE.com/Eric, ERICK. You get $250 off, covepure.com/Eric. The sale is going to end, so take advantage of this $250 holiday discount, covepure.com/Eric. Greetings, conversationalists. Don't forget to text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. You can get the show notes, the live stream, the podcast, everything you need. Martha Raddatz is not exactly a fan of Donald Trump. The ABC News is not. In fact, yesterday, if you were here, I noted they did a minute and a half on the ABC Nightly News about Donald Trump's offensive statements about Somalis and never mentioned the Somali fraud scandal in Minnesota. In fact, they haven't mentioned the Somali fraud scandal at all on ABC's Nightly News. Martha Raddatz, not exactly a fan of the Trump administration, and yet she is breaking some news here on ABC. She was the one who broke this as the boat situation in the Caribbean continues to evolve.
Believed to be potentially in communication with others and salvaging some of the drugs.
For some reason, that started in a weird place. Here we go.
And tonight, new information. According to a source familiar with the incident, the two survivors climbed back onto the boat after the initial strike. They were believed to be potentially in communication with others and salvaging some of the drugs. Because of that, it was determined they were still in the fight and valid targets. A JAG officer was also giving legal advice. So again, David, that video will be key, and Admiral Bradley will be on the Hill tomorrow behind closed doors.
Now, that was last night, so Admiral Bradley's going to be there today. Keep in mind, the original reporting is that the JAG officers, the lawyers, they were not consulted about the second strike. They were left out of it and didn't find out until after it happened. This contradicts that. And then they said they were floating in the water and they were targeted because of it. And that was contradicted by the New York Times that said, no, they were attempting to sink the vessel. The order was to sink the vessel. A second missile was required to sink the vessel. And now it turns out, as the story has continued to evolve from what the Washington Post originally reported and that CNN and others ran with, was that actually they weren't floating in the water. They climbed back into the boat, which was not sunk. They were attempting to rescue the drug cargo and pass it off to other narco-terrorists. And that's why they launched second. Completely changes the story unless you're just a flat-out committed Trump hater. I got to tell you, again, my standard rule on these sort of salacious stories is you wait 24, 48 hours, you see what plays out. You are never ever going to go wrong by waiting a couple of days when these sorts of stories from the press come out. Now, I will tell you as a side note, Laura Loomer is out on social media claiming that this was all a hit by Dan Driscoll, the Army secretary, who's actually friends with Jake Sullivan. And Jake Sullivan's wife, who's now a member of Congress, who participated in that video, allegedly donated money to Driscoll when he ran for office some years ago. Sounds like Loomer is grinding the axe against Driscoll and blaming him for this. There's a lot of drama in all of this. The president standing by Hegseth, and if anything, this sort of recovery of the storyline is going to protect Hegseth. If people were trying to push him out, this was the wrong thing to do. Doesn't actually make him look in the light that they cast him in. So, interesting development. They climbed back into the boat and were working with other narco-terrorists to save the drugs. Kaboom. Americans for Prosperity would like to get you involved with them around the nation. They get engaged regularly, and in so doing, they advance common sense conservative reforms across the country. Americans for Prosperity engages at the local, the state, and the federal level to rally conservatives to common sense conservative policy. In more and more cases, they're actually getting common sense Democrats, there are a few left, to advance some of their reforms around the country, particularly when it comes to reining in out of control state bureaucracies like the REINS Act. Even some Democrats are taking them seriously on this. They advocated for the president's tax cuts, mobilized an army of activists to get it done. They have mobilized conservatives around the country for school choice. They are deeply engaged in the fight for freedom in this country. They'd love to have you involved, even if you just want to be informed about public policy. Go to afpvolunteer.com today. afpvolunteer.com. Sign up with Americans for Prosperity today. Get involved with them. Advance the common sense conservative reform agenda across the country. afpvolunteer.com. In business, they say you can have better, cheaper, or faster, but you can only pick two. What if you could have all three at the same time? That's exactly what Cohere, Thomson Reuters, and Specialized Bikes have since they've upgraded to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. OCI is the blazing fast platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs, where you can run any workload in a high availability, consistently high performance environment and spend less than you would with other clouds. How's it faster? OCI's block storage gives you more operations per second. Cheaper? OCI costs up to 50% less for compute, 70% less for storage, and 80% less for networking. Better? In test after test, OCI customers report lower latency and higher bandwidth versus other clouds. This is the cloud built for AI and for all your biggest workloads. Right now, with zero commitment, try OCI for free. Head to oracle.com/Erickson, ERICKSON. That's oracle.com/Erickson. Greetings. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Charles Shea has died. You probably have never heard of him. You should know who he is. He was a decorated American Indian veteran. What did he do? Well, he was a 19-year-old Army medic and landed on Omaha Beach on D-Day and saved a lot of lives that day. Now, if you want real perspective on where we are historically from D-Day, he was 19 when he stormed the beaches of Normandy and died yesterday at 101. We are rapidly losing the living memory of World War II. Just for perspective there. Now, I got to move on to the Somali story. I want to play a clip for you. I need to play this audio. I have not actually heard this audio. That's fair warning to my board op. It's a press conference, so I assume there's nothing in it. It's, what is it, Pramila Jayapal? She's the leader of the progressives in the United States House of Representatives. She and a number of Democrats have filed legislation. Well, just listen to them.
Today to say enough. Our Dignity for Detained Immigrants Act has a remarkable, unprecedented 123 original co-sponsors. Before we've even introduced it, 123 co-sponsors, and it overhauls the detention system. It drastically scales back the use of detention. It ensures that every single immigrant who is in detention has their human and civil rights protected. Our bill also phases out the use of private for-profit detention centers. It prohibits the detention of children and families and makes it harder to detain primary caregivers and vulnerable people like pregnant women or seniors or workers who are whistleblowing on unscrupulous employers. It requires DHS to allow members of Congress to do our jobs and conduct those unannounced inspections that hold these facilities accountable. As an immigrant myself,
that's Pramila Jayapal, the leader of the progressives, Democrat from Washington State. 124 Democrats have signed on to legislation that will prohibit detaining illegal immigrants at the border. You'll have to let them into the country. Will require the United States government pay for lawyers to fight deportation, and will essentially abolish ICE internally. I wish you guys could see the look on Kobe's face right now. Yes. Your profanity will not bleed through the microphone. Y'all, this is nuts. This is they want to prevent the detention of people at the border. You're not allowed to detain people. You have to let them into the country if they cross illegally. You got to let them in, and you got to provide lawyers and make sure their benefits are not denied. Now, remember last year we were told that there were no benefits given to illegal aliens, and now we're being told, oh, well, of course we give them to illegal aliens. You racist. Why are you opposed? Ilhan Omar is speaking out on CNN about the Somalis in Minnesota.
I think what happened is that, when you have these kind of new programs that are designed to help people, you're oftentimes relying on third parties to be able to facilitate. And I just think that a lot of the COVID programs that were set up, they were set up so quickly that a lot of the guardrails did not get created.
A lot of the guardrails, she says, well, a lot of the guardrails. You don't need guardrails for honest people. You don't need guardrails for the honest people. We needed guardrails. Oh, it was the Somali community. Y'all, it wasn't the Swedish American ice fishers of Minnesota that were engaged in this fraud, eh? It was the Somali immigrants. Here's a little more Ilhan Omar.
Well, it's certainly not. We know that Somalis, over 90% of them are citizens of this country, majority of them having born in the United States. And we know that if you are a criminal, you already have deportation orders, and there is an easy way for them to do that instead of creating this sort of fear where they are having raids. And today we saw them stopping citizens, and people were proving their citizenship by showing their passports. And so we know it has really nothing to do about keeping a community safe. It's actually terrorizing a community and
Actually, see, here's what happened. The Biden administration sent even more Somali refugees to the Somali community in Minnesota, and many of them have overstayed their visas now. And the Somali community in Minnesota is actually protecting them from deportation and hiding them as if they're hiding Jews from the Nazis. They really do believe that ICE are the Nazis. They're not supposed to stay in the community. They're not supposed to be here. They're illegal aliens now. And you've got a Somali police officer. Listen to this. This is a Somali police officer in Minnesota confirming that he will be protecting the Somalis from ICE.
Ice-kana laga ilaalinaya masha Allah abowe ice-kana laga ilaalinaya safety-geena ma la sugaya.
What she's asking is, brother, aren't you going to protect us from ICE?
Masha Allah waa ujeedaan saaxiibayaal Carmel hadda waa shidan.
And he nods to her. Yes, I'm going to protect you from ICE. They're not speaking English. The caption, they're police, brother, aren't you going to protect us from ICE? And he turns and looks at her and he nods as he's talking on his phone. You have Representative Delia Ramirez talking about Department of Homeland Security. Listen.
And his willingness to shamelessly use DHS as his own force of terror is only making visible what so many communities have already known to be true, that terrorizing is the point.
You got this. This is the talking point. Terrorizing is the point. They've clearly hit on this, that terrorizing is the point. This is Rob Bonta, the California Attorney General. They've decided to set up a website where you will be able to file reports on ICE activity in order to protect illegal immigrants. You'll be able to file all the relevant information of where ICE is on this website.
I'm Rob Bonta, California Attorney General, and I want to say thanks for being here. We are here to announce a new tool that we are launching today to protect the rights, the safety, the dignity of all Californians throughout the state during a time of profound uncertainty and a time of profound fear. Today we're launching an online portal where members of the public can report potentially unlawful conduct by federal agents operating in our state. And we encourage Californians who have concerns about the law being broken, a federal officer breaking the law, to report to us so we can assess the information. Over the last 10 months, we've seen troubling reports coming from communities across California, including unmarked military-style vehicles and individuals detained in ways that resemble abductions. And
right. You got that? Y'all, I got a side note for those of you on the right here. First of all, there's a difference between the Border Patrol and ICE. ICE tends not to be the ones who are running all over the place grabbing people. ICE tends to know their target in advance. ICE is the one that's blamed, but often it's Border Patrol that does the more cavalier mass roundups. I need to say this on the record. Don't get mad at me for saying it because you know deep down it's true. Every time you arrest a citizen in the mix-up, it provides ammunition for the left to undermine the credibility of what's happening. So ICE and Border Patrol and Homeland Security need to dot all the I's and cross all the T's in advance. They got to do this. And they actually do need to focus on the bad guys first. Increasingly, among a lot of Trump supporters, they can't distinguish between the guy who hasn't broken the law once he crossed the border and the guy who actually is a gang member. Deport them all. There's a valid argument for saying that, but I've got to tell you, when Trump came in, he said he was going to focus on the worst of the worst, and a lot of Hispanic voters voted for Trump because of that. If you can't distinguish between the grandmother who's been here for decades illegally and the gangbanger who's terrorizing that grandmother's neighborhood who's illegal, you have a problem with the voters in the same way the Democrats have a problem because the Democrats don't want any ICE. Republican voters have a problem in that they're being overly aggressive with ICE. An American citizen is not required in the United States to have to walk around with their passport to prove their citizenship. And if that is the case in areas of this country, and I'm not saying it is, but that's the allegation. And if it is, that's wrong. You've got to understand the nuanced case here. Don't be mad at me for telling you the truth, because the truth is there will be a voter reaction against the right if they overplay their hand and are too aggressive. We want all the illegal aliens detained, but you got to start with the criminals first and then build the case for the rest of them. On the left, though, they've doubled down on the opposite extreme. It's both sides are extreme. On the right, it's every single person who is here illegally. There's no differentiation between them. They're all lawbreakers. Get them all out now. There's no priority between the gangbangers and the drug dealers and the grandmothers and the workers who are working for the landscape company. They're all the same. Get rid of all of them. That may be true to you, but to a lot of people it's not, and there will be backlash. In the same way on the left, it is we have to protect every illegal immigrant. They're all God's people. They're all welcome here. They should all be given welfare. No, that's wrong too. That is the bad position. And if you're forcing Americans to default, they're going to default on the far right side of deport them all. Why are we giving illegal aliens welfare benefits in this country? Why? We should not be. Minnesota's lieutenant governor is speaking out about this.
Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan, thank you so much for coming in. From what we have seen so far, there are no signs of large-scale arrests and operations around the Twin Cities in this new operation. Do you know what the roughly 100 federal agents are doing in your state right now?
Well, what I can tell you is they're certainly not letting us know their plans. But what we do see is that they're coming in quickly, scooping people up. We're hearing reports of that from folks on the ground. But really what this is all about is striking fear into the hearts of Minnesotans. I just find it completely abhorrent, the comments that came from President Trump out of the cabinet meeting the other day and just yesterday, just the vile, dehumanizing things that he had to say about our neighbors.
You got that? This is all completely abhorrent. The president's abhorrent. They're just striking fear. This is the talking point from the left, by the way, that they're just striking fear. No, they're not actually striking fear. They're deporting people who shouldn't be here. Y'all, if the Republicans play this right, I understand some of you listening right now, you're going to send me hate mail and say, nope, they're all the same, round them all up. If you can't distinguish between the gangbangers and the drug dealers and Julio who cuts somebody's grass down the street from you and leaves you alone, you're going to provoke a voter backlash. You can win this fight if you just show a little bit of restraint and no racism. Because if you come out on this, remember that the goal right now to win elections is to just not look insane. When the Democrats are coming out with legislation, 124 Democrats saying, we want illegal aliens not detained, welcome to this country, given welfare benefits and lawyers so they can stay here, versus we're rounding up the gangbangers and the drug dealers, we'll we'll figure out what to do with the rest of them once we get the drug dealers and the gangbangers gone. You come across looking reasonable. When you say, screw them all, we're rounding them up or we're shipping off to some country, we don't care where, maybe the desert in Africa, you look like a racist to a lot of people. You may not be, but you look that way, and you look crazy too. The American people are trying to find candidates who look reasonable, and it is a reasonable position to say there are a lot of illegal aliens here we can deal with later. Let's start with the gangbangers and the drug dealers and the violent ones, and then we'll move on and worry about the others later. And I think that's a winning position for the GOP right now. But you got to be able to nuance, and people don't want to nuance. The number of people who will yell at me for making the case that you just can't go in and round them all up because you come across looking bad to a lot of Hispanic voters and non-white voters who have been moving in your direction. They want the gangbangers gone. They want the drug dealers gone. They want the bad guys gone. And to a degree, they even want a lot of the other illegal aliens gone who came over during the Biden administration. But they're not concerned about the guy who's been here 30 years. And if you're not willing to make that distinguishing feature, you're going to cede some ground that could be yours to actually get these people out of the country. You got the opportunity to distinguish yourself from the left that's gone just absolutely insane and can't nuance anything. Just nuance a little bit. The left can't. You win the election. You win the argument. You preserve the power to be able to do these things. Greetings. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here, 877-973-7425. Jim in Springfield, Ohio. Welcome to the show, Jim. How are you?
Fine, Eric. Appreciate you bringing light to the Somalian community in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, because it's actually what's going on in central and southwest Ohio, and even up into the Lima, Findlay, Toledo areas is a replica of that. The Biden administration tried to establish these enclaves similar to the Somalian enclave with about 50,000 Haitians in the Columbus area, 30,000 in Springfield. Springfield is only a community of 60,000, and probably another 100 to 120,000 more southwest Ohio up I-75. The situation right now is DHS has already last week said they need to be out February 3rd. Mm-hmm. And that's already been, the Supreme Court's always ruled that's going to happen, although they did have an extension from August. However, this is all very similar in that there's a church, a Central Christian church led by a Carl Ruby, who is advocating for some of the same things that the civil disobedience, kind of the Underground Railroad, possible violence to protect these Haitians from leaving. And the whole advocacy thing is they know that they're probably going to have to leave, but they're doing what you just discussed in regards to raising money for legal assistance to try to keep them here, even though they're ordered to leave.
So I gotta let you go there, Jim, because I got a commercial break here. But you say this just so you guys understand. Yeah. There is the pastor he mentioned who calls himself a recovering fundamentalist who wrote a piece. The headline is "Civil Disobedience for Such a Time as This." The left can't distinguish this sort of stuff. It's an issue. I got to tell you about Hillsdale College. They have an actual class that is taught by Victor Davis Hanson on citizenship and why it matters. You can take that class for free along with 39 other classes at ericforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com. The class is 30-minute video lectures. And depending on the class, depends on the number of lectures. I think Victor's is 7 or 8 30-minute lectures, and it's a deep dive into citizenship, what it is, how it comes about, how you uphold it, elevate it. Really good. They've got one on the founding of the American Republic and the Constitution, on early Rome, literature, economics, science, chemistry, you name it, they got them. 40 classes to choose from at no charge to you. ericforhillsdale.com. You sign up, you improve your mind, you get smarter about a topic. ericforhillsdale.com. Sign up with Hillsdale College today.